Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrin, and in today's video I just want to talk a little bit about the quote-unquote potential leak of possible WoW's next expansion. I wanted to make a video displaying everything that people are talking about, where is this coming from, give a little bit of my own input of if I believe that this could be the lead up to, hey, what could possibly be the next WoW expansion. The short and story of sweet of this is there's a lot of Kul Tiras material that is in terms of gear and other updates that is popping up in the Wowhead and the MMO Champion as something that has been data mined from patch 7.3 PTR. There's a lot of things coming out in PTR, not everything that's always available for us, and people are data mining through the actual patch and the PTR to see what kind of other things they can dig up. And one of the things they dug up is a lot of gear that was called Kul Tiras leveling gear. The gear itself isn't all that special, and I could see this as something like questing gear for a caster of sorts, but what's interesting about it is people are looking at the side piece and the embroidery on the actual set. They're looking at the tiny details. On the side of a piece you will see a map, and this is kind of what it looks like. It's a map, and on the bottom you can see the embroidered tentacles, and then the stones kind of look like eyes, so people were thinking, oh, Kul Tiras gear, probably Kul Tiras map. Tentacles, we're thinking old gods, hey, maybe we got something for an old WoW expansion. What about South Seas or whatever the fuck? The South Sea expansion talks about exploring the ocean. If you're not aware and you didn't play Warcraft 3, basic gist of it is Nagas used to be night elves before they summoned Sergeras. After they summoned Sergeras, they were like, hey, highborn elves, leave the villages and whatever, so they all fled. And then Whispers of the Old Gods, the one that's Ny'alotha, which is on a Hearthstone card, he basically was like, hey, I'll turn into Naga, so they kind of served Ny'alotha. And the idea behind it is you have the Broken Isles, you have the, added areas to the Naga lands around the Maelstrom, you'll have a lot more underwater stuff. And there's also Kazan, maybe we'll come back to Kazan where the goblins started at. There'll be the island of Kul Tiras, which is where Jaina came from, again Warcraft 3 reference, and there's a lot more to talk about with Kul Tiras that might suggest that this might be a possibility. Then there's also Plunder Isle, which I have no idea what the hell that is, and then Ny'alotha, which is the, the domain of the old god, and really digs into the whole tentacle Lovecraftian style of bad guys and lore that WoW devs actually very much enjoy implementing. More about the old gods, but my thought process is we might have this, but we also might have another option, and I'll talk about that down in the video. But first I want to address the Kul Tiras itself. I want to address the possibility of Kul Tiras and South Seas becoming part of the expansion. What is Kul Tiras? If you never played Warcraft 2, they didn't really have too much lore covering it, and if you just play through the expansions and the story mode without really paying attention, it's easy to miss. It's a human city that was on an island located southwest of Lordaeron, Khazad-dûm. During the Cataclysm, the island shifted away, blah blah blah, and after Cataclysm, we basically don't know where it's at. During the Second War, blah blah blah, Dylan Proudmoore, blah blah blah. Jaina's dad was from there. Jaina's dad died when Thrall was trying to get his establishment foothold, and his Proudmoore guy came in and he got killed, and Jaina hates the orcs, and that goes back to the Jaina being a crazy bitch, if anybody remembers that. Kul Tiras was once a member of the Alliance, and its exact stature remains a mystery in its current time. It is notably inaccessible in World of Warcraft, although its influence can be seen throughout the game. Now, the interesting part I found is talking about the people of Kul Tiras, and while this isn't all that important, I actually felt that this was interesting as maybe a precipice. You don't really see these guys out questing except in one area in Orgrimmar. If you go a little bit southeast of your very first hub, where there's a flight path, I don't remember, a Razor Hill, I believe, actually. If you go off of there for a bit south left, you'll see a lot of the Alliance guys dressed in green. Think about these guys as like Gilneans, right? The original Stormwind and the Alliance have blue and yellow embroidery. Gilneans have the dark blue and yellowish embroidery. These guys have green and yellow, so that's the thing. They're basically a side set of the human race. But what's interesting about this part right here is the middle section, after it explains a little bit about the people of Tirisfal. The citizens of Tirisfal possess a deep-seated anxiety. Their eyes dart about, often looking to the west, where the greatest leaders of Kul Tiras and many of the warriors vanished. In the west, they're talking about from the, Eastern Kingdom's perspective, it is the west is in like the sea. They wonder if they'll ever see again their missing families. They're glad to have Proudmoore as the leader. There's a lot to tell. These guys are a bit anxious, scared, and there's not a lot to know about them. We did see a few of those guys being trapped around in the Azuna area, and that's one of the images that I have later down the line. So you see that those guys are still up and about. So I guess it could be that after Legion, somebody goes talk to these guys and then maybe go crazy and something about old gods, and then maybe the island is off somewhere. So we basically get Broken Shore 2.0, but maybe more water-based explorations, although I don't think that would make sense because we did have the whole Hydra, and I remember people disliking that, at least during the questing. I thought it was pretty, I just didn't like the Z mechanics of the, you can swim left, down, forward, up. The up and down part was a little bit confusing. But take a look at Kul Tiras and what can it offer, and what do you know, they had some of the different classes. They had Hydromancers, so think about Frost Mage, but without freezing the water, you just use the water and saltiness for, I guess, to erode away at your enemies. Actually, that sounds kind of neat. Navy Swordsman, which I guess is like, I guess I'm thinking like Arms Warrior, maybe like a buckler and a shield, swordman. Outlaw Rogues. Navy Snipers, which is kind of cool, so like a hunter style class. Crusaders, I'm not quite sure. That's in red, so maybe it's because nobody really knows if they had like access to paladins as a class or priest or whatever. Now, where the fuck would Kul Tiras be? Well, this is before the Lordaeron, before the Cataclysm, the whole split happened, everything went to shit. The Kul Tiras was this island right in the corner there. It looks a little bit like a turnip to me. But if you take a look at this map and the map that is written, or I guess sewn on the leveling gear, you do start to see some similarities, but don't think of the whole island as a whole, think of it as being more broken up. But it kind of does have this whole roundish, bottomish field, and then that tip at the very top, so it does look very familiar. So this is looking like Island of Kul Tiras, maybe after it's been broken apart and destroyed by waves, because it's no longer off the coast off of where it normally would be. So think of the island like drifted away into the sea maybe. Again, I said it earlier that some of the members of Kul Tiras can be found on Azuna. They don't really play a big part. I believe you see some of them and you help them escape the sea giants, but that's really about it. But technically they have been introduced to the game, so technically they could be used by the developers. So it isn't impossible, and we could say that, well, technically they are part of the canon, but it's really difficult to tell if it's enough of information to really bring it all to life, if you understand what I mean. But Blizzard does also like to use other information besides in-game events, which I kind of hate. When you have some kind of a crazy event like Deathwing, for example, there was no real questline or cinematics to really explain who he was until you really delve into the story, and they do kind of utilize the books and the comic books and whatever other pieces of footage that, or I guess not footage technically, it's all written, any pieces of artwork or written pieces that are technically canon that could make a reason for it. And there seems to be plenty of information on Kul Tiras possibly being somewhere out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere and somehow having connection to Broken Isles ever since the Cataclysm shattering. So technically Blizzard could do it. I just don't like the idea of just, hey, there's something written on a website from like years ago and apparently that's canon. You give me a cinematic, give me a story, give me a reason. Hopefully they can maybe unfold it and package the idea easier if they end up doing this. Now, the big one, who would be the bad guys? Well, the old gods. We have this place called Ny'alotha, and it's kind of like this metaphysical, maybe physical place somewhere where the old god sleeps. And I guess the only old god, maybe there's more of them on Azeroth. I'm not a lore guy, but one of them, Ny'alotha, which is kind of the guy with the Nagas. I guess he would be the leader or creator of Ny'alotha, which is like the city of terrible, unnumbered crimes, just the worst shit going on. But we don't really know if it's like a metaphysical place, kind of like the Emerald Nightmare or the Emerald Dream. Like, it doesn't really exist in reality. It's more kind of like when Goku goes to train and he's in this space that's just different from everything. He's in reality, but it's not quite the same as the real world deal. So it's really difficult to tell exactly where they could take it, where they could spin it. And I like the idea of Ny'alotha, I just don't know how they would go with it. I just don't even know if there's enough of Old God and South Sea expansion content, to be honest, but I guess we'll just continue from there. Ny'alotha itself was described as like a beneath the sea, there's a forest, the Emerald Dream, there's a prison, there's a lot of these what the fuck is going on moments going on with that whole poem, and it's all, I like the mystery behind it. This is very Lovecraftian and makes you think a bit of, what is it, Secret World Legends now? Original Secret World, and how it has Cthulhu-like things. It's really, really cool and mysterious. So it kind of does pique my interest, and to be able to see more old gods and what they can do, and maybe some kind of wrap on the Naga, it'll be neat, because Naga, I remember those creatures being in Warcraft 3 for since I was a kid, whether they were, you know, you were playing as the Naga, as Illidan, or you were fighting against the Naga as Maiev, but it's just, they've been such an iconic creatures, but they never really been part of anything. There's some lore behind it, but I don't really know. It's, to be honest, if I had to say, I think there's not enough information to. There's possibilities and there's enough of hype to maybe think that South Seas could be an awesome expansion. It's a possibility, but I personally don't think that this could be enough. First of all, we don't really have enough of information about Kul Tiras. Let's say it did drift off and they're fighting off the bad guys. Who would be the bad guys? Naga and pirates? It'd be a little bit weird to go back from fighting demons in the other planets and maybe the Void Lords with dungeons and the raids, and now you're like, oh, let's go just slay some pirates. Hey guys, ooh, Pirate Pete is such a hard boss. Oh man, kill Jaden seems easy next to him. I mean, I just can't imagine it. We're gonna find pirates and knock him. I guess you would have the big bad guy Ny'alotha, and he would be linked to like maybe the Void Lords, the Void Gods, the Old Gods, maybe a link to that. But it just feels like with the introduction of like the Warriors of Light, like the real Warriors of Light, the dudes with the light golems, it seems like it's a building up an army that's already fighting the greatest threat in the world, the Burning Legion, next to maybe the Void, and an old god just seems like playtime. I feel like they could just go and one-shot him and it wouldn't be a much expansion. Then it's a question of like, what would we do in the sea? Do we sail ships? I mean, that would be kind of neat, but I just don't know if that'll be enough. I mean, if you were bringing in the sea, you want the underwater too. Are you going to have underwater combat? Is the questing going to be mostly underwater? I mean, when you have questing where you're running around on the ground and you can jump around, and that feels pretty natural. But when you add the Z-axis where you're swimming left, right, forward, back, up, down, then you're bringing in a concept that maybe a good old two people enjoyed back in Vashir, back in Cataclysm. I mean, I feel like there's just not enough of information to really suggest that this could be an expansion. There's a lot of hype behind it, a lot of speculation. We have the gear that says Kul Tiras. Oh, maybe we're gonna go deal with Void Gods. Oh, did you see the etching in the robe? And I might just eat my own words for saying right now, but I don't think that that could be an expansion. It's a possibility, but I just don't think there's enough. We have pirates, we have Naga, we have an old god, we have Ny'alotha, which is awesome, but I think there's just so many gaps, and I think they just wouldn't make for a good expansion if I were Blizzard. It seems that Blizzard has done a pretty good job with expansions where there was already pre-established lore that most players knew, and they expanded on it and finished the story. We had Illidan in BC, they finished the story. We have Arthas, which is one of the more notable stories that just about everybody knows in World of Warcraft or Warcraft games in general, and they finished that story very well. They even added the Titans to continue on to something more. It's just they take something that's already pre-existent and they add more to it to build up until it builds itself into something massively greater. And here I just don't think they have enough. I feel like if anything it'll be like Cataclysm where, oh, Deathwing comes up and it's like, who is Deathwing? I don't know him, I don't remember full lore, I don't really know if I care. I mean, he's a big bad dragon, so I guess I should want to slay him. Maybe he'll drop some epic loot, but nobody really cared. And that's the thing with the South Seas. I just don't know if there's enough of reason to give players a care. I don't think there's enough content, I don't think there's enough build-up, I don't think there's enough of, I guess, substantial material to really go and make this an expansion. And there's a lot of plot holes that Blizzard can go and fill, but expansions I don't think are made through, you know, filled plot holes. They're made from previous well-established stories and then expanding on those, at least the expansions that have been doing well so far. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.